couple things we want to talk about today. We're going to hit on two major things. We're going to talk about ministry tools, and specifically a couple ministry tools, although you can browse through all the ones that we've got, and that list will grow and grow as we're adding ministry tools into that section of what we've got on the platform. That is still very much in beta, okay? Which means that you might click on it a few times and have an oops, you found a bug, things like that. Give us grace. We're still working some kinks out on that, but you all are kind of our internal beta test team. And so really, really thankful that you guys are willing to check out things, work on things, report some bugs, and also have some grace as bugs show up. But man, some new things are being added all the time. And we're going to talk about some preaching tools that are in ministry tools today that I think are going to be tremendously helpful for your team. But if you're in the comm team side of life, or if you're a volunteer who's handling pieces like that, there's opportunities for you in there as well. Look through that. There's Old Testament, New Testament, word studies. There's tons of resources inside ministry tools. We're going to hit on 4 specific ones today. Okay, we're going to do that. And then we're going to spend some time talking about prompting, which can sound like I don't even know what that means for a lot of people. I didn't either a little while back. And so we've got somebody who's on our team who his whole world is like, well, not his whole world, but when it comes to us, he spends a lot of time just getting like the best out of AI with the way he writes prompts. And so he's going to give you some key ways to like, here's how you can do what you do better and be more effective. But the first thing I really want to hit on is in itself a ministry tool. And it's not one of the 4 that we've talked about. It's just one I want you to take a look at. If you're inside ministry tools, there's an area that will help you do, it's a small group launch communications plan builder. Okay. And so inside there, the reason why I want to bring that up now is because you should be using that like right now. Okay. It would seem for the majority of churches that I work with or that I've worked at, right after Labor Day, there's a heavy push for small group interaction, for people to kind of relaunch that, to get people engaged in that world. Okay. That means that you need to start communicating that now. Okay. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this one tool first. And Josh, I'm going to have you like lead people through how you go about doing that and how you use this tool to get you where you want to go as just an overall like ministry tool, show them how we're going to get, to the content page and things like that, but really using this tool as a way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And once I've got that going here, all right. So when you log into church.tech, you're gonna land on the sermon upload page. Ministry tools, if you've been added to our beta testing group, is going to live right over here. So if you haven't, like we said, drop your email into the email that you use to log into church.tech, just to be clear. Make sure you're using the email that you actually use to log into church.tech into the chat, and Matt will help you get connected on the beta testing side of things. But you'll click on ministry tools, and then we're going to build a small group launch communication plan. So in the new ministry tools here, you're going to click on that one. The church I go to is called the Foundry. And then you'll put your church name in, you'll put your launch date. So like, when are you going to launch groups? For us, it is, let's say the 22nd. We'll just go with the 22nd. And then just pick the types of groups that you have. So I'll just go with all of them.
You have other groups even. Okay,
We
good.
do. We even have other groups.
Other
And then
groups.
if you have small groups that are, like a specific name, or like if they're geographically located, that type of thing, what do you call those? So we call ours neighborhood groups. And then you'll just click generate. And what this is going to do is it's going to generate a small group communication plan to launch your small group, so that you can let your church know, hey, small groups are coming. They're launching really soon. And I'm going to go ahead and click over and show you what that would look like. So once that's done, you'll get a little, we call them toasts. I'm not sure where that name came from, but a little pop-up over here. You can click on that. It'll take you right there. But if you miss that, you're going to click on the content tab. And we're going to clean up this process here soon, but you'll click on the content tab, then you'll click on ministry tools pages, and then you'll see, oh, here it is right here. So that's where that's going to live. We've been talking about it for a little while. These pages typically, depending on what you're doing with them, they'll take ministry tools will take between 1 to 5 minutes to generate. They should. And so here's our communication plan for small groups, right? We're launching on the 22nd. Foundry neighborhood groups launch. So you've got couple things here. You've got stage announcements for 4 weeks in a row. So 4 weeks before launch. Um, Here's what we're going to say on stage. And again, everything we generate on church.tech is designed to be 90% done for you, right? You're still the final filter. We still need you to, read every single one of these and edit them. But we're getting you way down the line. It's so much easier to edit than it is to create from nothing, right? So
Absolutely.
we're going to try to make it really easy for you to have, okay, here's our stage announcements. Here's 4 weeks of social media posts. Here's 4 weeks of email announcements. Here's 4 weeks of text message reminders. And then here's 3 promotional video ideas. And the way that these are designed is that it would be something that can be shot on your phone on Sunday at church or during the week. Really, really simple, just trying to communicate and give you everything you need to create awareness about groups launching and make it very easy for you to then communicate that out to your whole church. So that's the idea behind this ministry tool. We're trying to make it really easy for you to get everybody in your church aware and give you the content you need to actually communicate out.
For those of you who are new to the whole church.tech world and you're like, man, there's ministry tools and there's a playground and there's pages. We are aware that there's a lot of different places that you can look for different things. The way that you should maybe think about ministry tools right now is when the playground happens and things that we do in that, most of those are sermon based. Okay. If you upload your sermon, here's things that I can do to take my sermon further. Ministry tools are things that are not sermon based. There's some of you actually who are in this group right now that asked me and have asked Josh before, like, hey, this is really, really helpful and I love this, but not everything we do is just for the sermon. And so what are the things that we can do? So we've just gone to work and we started creating all kinds of different tools in here that you could say, wow, that would be really helpful. If I have an announcement that I've got to generate that's not related to the sermon, I can put things in here and say, how do I write write me announcements for all these different ways, like Josh just showed, whether it's a stage announcement, whether it's social media announcement, whether it's an e-news or an email, text, things like that. It'll do that for you. If you want to generate a family devotional, if you want to generate a bunch of different tools, you can go through again and just pull out a certain scripture and a certain keyword in the scripture, and it'll do a full exhaustive study on New Testament, Old Testament, Greek and Hebrew word studies for you. But what I really want to talk about today is some preaching tools that our lead prompt engineer, Doug Foltz, who is here and is going to be working us through some preaching tools that he's put together recently that are going to be incredibly helpful for you to get some different insight on how to put together messages. Okay. For those of you guys who are looking for other things, keep browsing around ministry tools. We'll be around to answer questions. But right now, I really want to focus on this. And Doug, so give us a general overview of these 4 that you've done in the last week, why you did them, what you were thinking about. And then we're going to do a bit of a kind of a live demo. Dwayne Calvin is here, who's preaching next week. He's one of our guys who's one of our churches that are on the platform and volunteered to be our guinea pig. And so he's going to help answer some questions that Doug's going to work through, and we're going to generate some answers for him for his message next week. But first of all, Doug, take us through those 4 kind of tools and kind of what you were thinking with that.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So if you are in ministry tools, you'll see first, you'll see this page, and then you can actually filter down to the preaching ones just by clicking on the word preaching up here at the top. And you'll see there's a whole section now. There's 8 actually that got created and thrown in there. And there's really what I'm intending to help you with is kind of a workflow. So if you think through, first off, am I preaching topically or am I preaching more of an expository sermon? If you're preaching topically, you'll see there's a couple here, theological insights for a topic, where all you need to do is put in the topic that you're preaching on, and it'll kind of go through and generate some information for you on theological insights for that topic. This one here for topical sermons is a Bible survey. And so again, if you have a topic like say hospitality, you'll put hospitality in, and then it'll generate kind of a list of, hey, here's places in the Bible where you can find the topic of hospitality discussed. All that's just to kind of accelerate your study. If you're doing something that's more textual based, that's where these other 5 prompts here come in. So We've got historical and cultural background, religious, philosophical, and theological context, geographic and linguistic context, literary context of the text, archaeological findings. All of these are just things that kind of get your background study up and going. Right. So I went ahead and ran some of these for Matthew 5, 1 through 13. Now you'll notice when you start doing this, this is one of the beta bugs that we've got right now, is it'll actually generate, and the title will say 5-day devotional on Matthew 5. It's not a 5-day devotional. The content is still the right content. So we're working on getting that fixed. But you'll see here now it's come through and it's generated some historical context, and then some cultural context for Matthew 5, 1 through 13 that I can use to begin to kind of get my head wrapped around the text. Same here. If you look, here's a paragraph each on the religious and philosophical context, one on the theological context. This one is more linguistics oriented, so the genre of the passage and the intertextuality, which that was not a word I made up. That was one that ChatGPT came up with. But again, just kind of talking about how this interplays with other verses in the Bible. Literary devices, which are very important for understanding your text. It talks about the devices that are present in 5, 1 through 13. And again, some context. If we come here, we've got geographic and some more linguistic context. What I really like about this one is that this now kind of suggests some original language work that you can begin to do. And this is where we can begin to kind of stack some of the ministry tools together. So what I did was I just took this one right here, this blessed, the Greek word makarios, and then I ran that on our ministry tool for Greek New Testament studies. And so you can see here's the word makarios, and it kind of does a pretty good word study on that Greek word. Now, of course, if you've been to seminary and you've done all the language work yourself and you have all the tools, you're going to look at this and go, man, I could do a better one. You could, but probably couldn't do a better one in 2 minutes. I'm guessing, just a guess. So you can get better work on your own, of course, but you probably also don't have the time to spend 10, 12 hours each week on one single word study. Would encourage you to continue to use your word study tools, but this is a really quick way of getting an overview for a sermon or Bible study that you're prepping. Now, what's interesting is, again, you can kind of stack these ministry tools together. So I'm going to show you another ministry tool in a second, but I'll show you first kind of what I did with each of these. So for each of these, what I did was I just came in and I highlighted, and I just did a simple copy paste, right? So if you're on a Mac, Apple C, Apple V, Control C, Control V on a PC. And what I did was I created like a master page, right, that has all of these different outputs on it. And so you can see here, I not only have this first one that I showed you, historical and cultural, but all the other stuff that we just generated now are all on this one page. Okay, so here's where that comes into play. So now I'm going to copy in this entire output, which is 5 different ministry tools all combined together, including our Greek word study. And we're going to come over here and go to this brainstorm one. Now you'll see here, okay, so I'm going to insert my scripture verse, which was Matthew 5, 1 through 13. I can say, what is my audience? I can say a little bit about my congregation. We've kind of given you a little bit of a prompt to go on here. You can put as much information about your congregation as you want. In fact, the more information you've got on your congregation that you want to put in this box, the better result you're going to get. Right. So I'll just say a mixed age congregation that trends towards more middle-aged and younger. That's my congregation that I attend. All right. So then I can say, what's the main goal of my sermon? What am I wanting to accomplish with this? Again, you can be, very vague and just say, well, I want to, encourage, or I want to challenge, or you can get more specific. The more specific you get, the better output you're going to get on the other end. Right. So for this, I'm just going to, for quickness here, I'm going to put challenge. Desired outcomes. Consider what you want your listeners to know, feel, and do. Right? These are optional. You don't have to fill these in, but again, if you do, you're going to get better outputs. Theological emphasis, you can put that in there. So like if you're reading that text and you're like, man, I did this theological analysis, and this particular one is what stuck out to me, is what my congregation needs. You can drop that right here. Application, again, so this answers the so what questions. If you're beginning to see like, man, here's some ways I want to apply this for my congregation, put that in there as well. Tone of the sermon, if you want to have a tone, you can put that in as well. Now what I'm going to do is, I just copied all of our outputs from those 5 different ministry tools, and right here where it says study notes, I'm going to paste my study notes in. Okay. So there's my Apple V. If you look through, that's those several pages of study notes that we just generated from the other ministry tools. And now I'm going to generate that. And what this is going to do is this is going to then create kind of a long list of potential main topics that you can have, or main points that you can use within your sermon. Again, we're not telling you what ones you have to use. This is a brainstorm, right? So it's a long list. You may, read that list, and it hopefully will kind of spur some other ideas for you. Maybe use 2 or 3 off of there. Maybe use none, but hopefully it gets the creative juices, flowing for you. So if you were to go in, let's see how close we are. Content, ministry tool pages. That's an important thing. When you're trying to find it, you're going to go to content. It's going to default to the sermon pages, and you want to click on ministry tool pages. Okay. If I click on ministry tool pages, I need to do a refresher. There it is. All right, a convicting challenge from Matthew 5, 1 through 13. And here are my main points for Bible study or sermon, right? And it's going to list out about 10 different main points. Actually, we got more than that. We got 20. Wow. Okay. So 20 different potential main points for your sermon or your Bible study. Again, the more context you give it, and the more of those things that you answer with the more detail, you're going to get better and better results out of doing that. So that's a quick rundown of how to use those new preaching ministry tools that we put in the system last Friday.
Okay. What I want to do is, first of all, give you all a couple like kind of caveats. I want to make sure people hear this from us. We are under the same conviction that hopefully you are. We're never going to have AI write a sermon specifically, like just write a sermon for you. That's not our intent, or we will do our very best to never do that. What we don't mind doing is letting this tool be just another tool in your toolkit to help you get a better context, better ideas, different ideas than you may have normally had, kind of be a seat at the creative table. That we don't mind that at all. We have commentaries for that. We do that all the time. We've got people on our team that do that. We have people in our audience that give us feedback or help us with things. This is just another version or another way to go ahead and use help to kind of come up with a different approach to how you approach a message. So there's lots of things we can do with that. What I'd like to do right now is just take a real-time example. And so Dwayne, are you muted? You're muted right now. Let's unmute you. And Doug, Dwayne, he's preaching next weekend. And so I was going to have you kind of interview him on some of his key points, and then let's go ahead and enter some of that stuff in to the tool in real time and let everybody just kind of see how we would go about doing that. So everybody pretend that you are Dwayne. Dwayne's very tall and better looking than me, so I like to pretend I'm Dwayne. So here we go.
All right. So Wayne, out of those ministry tools you saw, which one kind of resonates that you'd like to work on here?
Oh, I like the brainstorm. I love to do the brainstorm.
All right,
Yeah.
let's do the brainstorm and let me share the screen again. All right, so
Yeah.
what's your scripture verse of the topic that you're working on?
Esther chapter 4. It'll probably be snapshots all around Esther, but definitely looking at Esther chapter 4 as a kind of a main focus.
All right, tell us a little bit about your congregation.
Congregation, it's about 7,000 people, and it is very diverse in age, background, and biblical knowledge. So really diverse congregation.
I know a little bit about this church. Would it be fair to say also, and Doug, tell me if this is helpful, but some of the things like they're going through some leadership and vision changes right now. They're doing some new vision. Would any of that help in this context?
Yeah, I think, if it's something that's, the congregation is, thinking through, or it's something that's relevant, to the sermon in some way, absolutely. So,
Yeah, so I'd say working through some new vision as a church.
Yeah. Mhm.
So what's your, the main goal of your sermon? What's the purpose?
Encourage and instruct. Yeah, and encourage, instruct, and apply. That's what I would probably say.
And what's the outcome? Think kind of head, hand, or the head, heart, hands framework.
Yeah, that's good.
What do you
Yeah.
want them to know, feel, and do?
I want them to leave with an understanding and a feeling that God is always at work. It's kind of a deep dive into the providence of God and kind of seeing him at work in Esther's life, but also to see him at work in their own lives.
Love that.
So
It's like Esther's the book where God's not mentioned anywhere. And so he's not specifically mentioned, but you can see his hands in the whole story.
Is there any particular application, like any of those so what questions?
Sure. I want them to see where God is already at work in their own lives and join him there, and then begin to encourage others to do the same.
Right. Do you have a specific tone you want to aim for?
I think tone is probably, we don't want to come across as, we want to be able to talk to people who don't have a theological degree. So I would say whatever that word means, or whatever that
approachable.
Approachable. Yeah. That's a good word. Approachable.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. Any study notes that you want to include?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
This is actually what I need to help get started, to get the creative thought process going.
Excellent.
Love that.
All right. So we can either wait for the little pop-up to say it's done. I'm always too impatient to do that. I need something to click on while I'm waiting. So I always just click on content, and then I click on ministry tool pages. And okay, wow, it's it's probably still generating, but
yeah, it's going to give you the blob.
Yep. And so now we can wait, for that to generate.
If you stare at the lava lamp for too long, it'll keep you, it mesmerizes you.
All right, so here we go. We've got some main points. God's hidden hand in our lives, the courage to act in faith. It's also coming back and giving you a little bit of rationale, like what, why are we choosing that? So it gave you a list of 10.
I love it.
Since we're on this, since we're on this way, and we're doing this through your account, but Dwayne would need it. Let's go ahead and go file up in the top left.
I see where yeah.
You know where I'm going. Copy page URL, and let's paste that in the chat. And now everybody will have these options. You'll all be able to look at that. So that you'll have access to that site, and you should be able to just take a look at that. And now you'll see what we did there. So again, this is the beginning of what a greater tool that we're going to talk about a little bit at the end that we're working toward, that should be released in October, called Sermon Copilot. And what you're starting to see as we're working through these ministry tools are ways that you can stack things together for a process that will help you to build out a message quicker than before, would help you. And it's not just for Sunday. If you're doing a Bible study, if you're doing a small group study, things like that, this all can be done for things like that as well. If you know, and so you're going to start to see this. Okay, we had New Testament and Old Testament word studies. Now we're adding this to it. Now we're adding this to it. And you're starting to see a flow being built for a whole process on how you could go about building out your message for the week. So that's one thing I wanted you all to just get a good look at today. I want to pause here and just let you guys open your mics up and ask Doug any questions. We are going to keep going on some prompt generation ideas, but I wanted to stop here if you guys have any questions, any of you who are teaching in the room.
I have a question. This is Dan. When you do that brainstorm, is there any way of going back and editing that after you've generated it? In other words,
Yes.
if you want to add another scripture in that, how do you edit that to add another scripture to that same? You want to keep the same audience, the same outcome, the same. Can you just go back and put another scripture in and then run it again? Is that possible? Just asking.
That's a good
Yes,
question.
you could run it again. It's not going to like you can't go back and go, hey, I just want to add. You're gonna have to fill out each form field.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah, a couple of those
what I
might
find is that
honestly.
it actually kind of remembers what you typed before. So instead of typing the whole thing out, I'll just, oh, yep, that's what I typed before. It's there as an option. I just click it. So it's a little quicker. But yes, you would need to run the ministry tool itself again.
Yeah, there's a
Okay.
strong chance that your audience is going to be similar most times, and so it'll
Right.
remember that, and you start typing some words, it pops in.
Ah.
But before we ever had saved prompts in the playground, I used to have the same question, and so I just kind of kept a notepad open at the same where I'd write a prompt out, and I just have a whole
Okay.
list of them. You may consider doing while we're in this phase of beta and just getting things up and going. You may just want to consider making fields and just making a list of it so you can copy and paste them in just for time's sake.
There's
Okay.
going to be some things that you're going to see over and over, and you know, the audience that you're preaching to will be one. And so
Right.
if you one good, sentence or paragraph, just save that somewhere so that you can copy and paste it in every time.
Okay, so you can copy and paste then if you save it somewhere else, document or something. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions we've got? Hey, Josh, I have a question for you. Based off the process that we just did, if we were to take that and quickly upload that into the manuscript side of life and use a save prompt with the outline expander, can you talk about that for a minute? How we could use that to kind of take this to the next level? This is just so y'all know, this is real time. I just thought of this, so it might be a horrible idea. But I just figured I'd put you on the spot.
Absolutely. Let me get back to, sorry, I'm like jumping in on all of the
Yeah, I see you in the chat. Thanks for handling all that.
yeah, well, Matt's doing most of it, but hey, if just so everybody knows, if you're still having trouble getting into ministry tools, we appreciate your patience with us. We're definitely we're trying to get everybody access. The beta group is not something that is just click of a button to get you in there. So appreciate you giving us a little bit of time to get that done, and we will get it done. If we missed you in the comments or something like that, feel free to email me or Matt or Don, and we'll get you set up. And that's just Josh, Matt, Don at church.tech. Yeah, let me share my screen here.
You understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, I get what you're asking. Yep. I've never actually done this, so let's see. I just pulled
This could be tragic, y'all, but that you're the beta group, so thanks for hanging out with us.
All right, here we go. So we're gonna upload. I'm back on the upload page. I copy pasted the sermon notes that Doug put into the chat, and now I'm gonna paste it in here. Click continue. It might get a little confused because we're giving it 10 main points.
Right, right.
So now we're gonna upload this, and we're gonna jump over to the playground. And man, if you haven't jumped in to save prompts on the playground, we keep hearing from people that they haven't seen this yet. They're trying to prompt on their own. there are some incredibly valuable prompts that we have baked an enormous amount of expertise into. So like what Doug's going to show you today will help you like begin to learn how to prompt. These have incredibly robust, very, very expert level prompts baked into them. So inside of here, you can look at yours will live in here as well, but these are our church.tech saved prompts. Let's see here. So I'm going to
Down one. Brainstorm outline content. Is that what you're looking at?
yeah, here we go. Okay. So I'm going to choose the brainstorm outline content, use prompt. It's going to take the context that we just pasted in and uploaded, and it is going to brainstorm different ideas for here's how you could actually write this sermon. So I forget who I was chatting with earlier, but you were asking about whether or not it like is going to go in any kind of order for the ministry tool that Doug was showing us. The answer to that is no, but this would walk through your text, and help you kind of work this out. It's thrown it off a little bit because we gave it 10 main points, and so
we'll say in the process that maybe you make that page and you go through, here's the key points, and these are the 3 that I really want to hone in on, and you would delete the rest of them or something like that. But like then you would take that, paste it in here, go into this space, and help it like brainstorm outline content.
Yeah, and I literally just pasted in, sermon on the like I pasted the whole page, every bit of content on that whole page, and so it's going to be a little bit funky on that front. But if you picked
this is a 90-minute sermon.
Yeah, we're helping you now. All you got to do is refine it, right? So now we're gonna go, you know what, this is a little too long. Let me go into Logic and Flow and see how I can make this make more sense. Actually, this is just a weird, funny experiment to run.
We're just having fun at your all's expense right now. Thanks for hanging with us.
I'm gonna quit sharing my screen. But yeah, now I'm going through and running the Logic and Flow, and it's telling me here's how to make this sermon make sense with your 10 main points that you're trying to make.
So anyway, that's how you can take ministry tools, help to start build out a message, build out some study behind what you're trying to do, give it some general ideas on some points, refine those points and say that actually helps me make sense, or 2 of them make sense, and I've got a 3rd one I've got to incorporate. You put that in there and you paste that back into the upload a sermon, and then it will help you to build out your entire sermon from there in the playground. Okay, so that's just a great example of how you can use all these tools to work together. And again, everybody, I want you just to be thinking about October when Summer Copilot comes out. For those of you guys who teach and preach on a regular basis, that's going to be a game changer for you. But you're starting to see how AI can help you right now without feeling like you're unethically using AI for this. It'll be really great. What I want to do with the rest of our time, though, is you just saw a great example of the playground. And when you click on that save prompt, it says 1 line, do this. That is not what the prompt looks like. Like Josh said earlier, these are really robust, long, pages-long prompts. And we're not expecting that we're going to teach you today how to write a pages-long prompt. But what we are going to expect for you to do is there are some best practices that you can look into and say, here's a way to make it respond better for me. I could literally just write, hey, write out small group material for me, and it'd try. But if I give it some parameters and some details on it, it'll do a better job. If I say write out social media plan, it'll try, but there's ways to make that better. So the whole point of today's training, the rest of our time, is that Doug's going to teach you some beginning prompt rules when you're writing a prompt in the playground that will help you get more out of your prompt. Doug, it's all yours again.
Thanks, Don. Hey, Don, why don't you pull up a sermon in the playground?
Okay.
And then we can kind of practice a little bit as we go as well.
Sure.
So when you're working with any generative AI or large language model, one thing that you need to understand is that every time you start a new chat, you're starting from scratch. So I tell people that AI is like an amnesia patient. It only remembers the conversation that you're in right now, right? That's an important thing to remember, because like, again, when we're in human relationship, we're gonna talk, and then we're gonna come back later, and it's like, well, yeah, I'm gonna remember some of what that conversation was. That's not true with an AI. Every time you start a new chat, you are starting with a blank slate, as if you are meeting that AI for the first time. All right, so that's a good rule of thumb to remember. The other thing you need to remember about AI is that it's an expert in everything. uh, so that can make it challenging, right? If you're talking to somebody that's a genius, it's challenging enough. When you're talking to someone who's a genius in everything, that's a whole new level of challenging. So one of the best things that you can do when you're first beginning to have the conversation is to tell it what you need it to be an expert in. We call this giving it a role. Okay. So you can say, like, if we were going to write a social media post, like the temptation is just to go, hey, write me a social media post, based on my sermon. But you're going to get a better result to start off saying, give it a role and say, give it a role of like social media marketing expert. If you are writing a post for a particular platform, you could say social media marketing expert, for churches, using Instagram. Again, get as narrow and specific as possible, because what you're doing with each one of those little additions is you're telling it exactly, here's the role that I want you to play, right? And the next key piece that you need to make sure that you give is context. Again, so if you put yourself in like a consulting role, just say you've got you're at a pastoral conference, and somebody comes up and says, hey, how do I well, we'll just use Dwayne's example. How do I roll out a new vision in my church? Well, does anyone think that might be slightly different for a church of 7,000 than a church of 50?
Yes, good call.
It might be, right? Might there be a difference if it's in a small rural community versus a large metropolitan area? Again, we can start to think through, like, if I'm a consultant and somebody's asking me that question, I need more information, and go, what are the questions that I would ask? Those are the pieces of information that you want to give to the AI, right? And so you'll say context, like, so again, maybe Don, just write the word context on there, and you can say, I am a pastor. You can say, at a church of, let's just use some of Dwayne's, since we used him a minute ago. And again, you're just giving it all the information that you can think of, right? And what that does is it helps now this social media marketing expert know all about your church.
So role, context.
Role and context, very, very
Okay.
important. All right. And then the next thing you want to give it are just instructions, right? And when you think of instructions, right, you got to kind of think of, we've probably all worked with people who are very linear in their thinking, and they need you to give them a lot of detail, and they need you to give them step-by-step instructions. That's how AI works best. So you could be vague and just be like, hey, give me a social media post, and it'll do it, right? But if you give it very step-by-step types of instructions, you're going to get a better result. So again, Don, you're the marketing expert. Give us a couple of step-by-step instructions of how you might think of creating a post on Instagram out of this sermon. All right, so Don's giving it some instructions.
So I've got it saying, build out for me a social media plan based off of the content of the sermon. Give me 3 posts for Facebook, Instagram. I have noticed that it doesn't like X. It goes with Twitter. I think it's just like the rest of us. And so Facebook, Twitter, and sometimes I'll just write X in there. And then I'll say include. I should spell include right. By the way, Doug, I need to say, when you were typing earlier, I was blown away by how well you typed. I type really fast, and occasionally I get the words right. So thanks for hanging with me. Include a carousel I don't even know how to spell that right. So, idea for Instagram. How's that?
I think it's good. What I would add, Don, is up with your context, I would add a little bit about what you want to accomplish with this.
Okay, good. Um,
Public is stressful. That is true.
my goal is to use this message as a fall kickoff. And I'd like to get people to attend. How about that, y'all? We should get people to attend our church. How's that?
Okay, so now we've given it a role, we've given it context, we've given it some instructions. If you've got some examples, if you're like, man, we had somebody on our team that just had a killer Instagram post that got a lot of traction. Like, you can just copy and paste that in here and give it as an example. Like, here's an example of one that went really well for us.
Oh,
right?
nice. Okay.
You could do that sort of thing as well.
So I would
Maybe
write maybe like
more
example
information.
colon and then post it.
Yeah, or let's say you've got some kind of if you're a larger church and you've got a brand guide and it's like, hey, we like to use these kind of keywords and phrases in our social media posts. Give all that to the AI, all right? And then
Okay.
now click generate.
All right.
And what you'll get is you'll get a much better output that's much more close to like what you're hoping to get, right?
Now, again, the goal is always 90%, right? I'm still going to know my final, like my voice and what I want it to be. And so I would come in and be able to edit this out, but it's so much easier to edit than it is to create out of nothing, especially when you're doing this every week, right?
Yeah. Now you can come back and just continue the conversation as well. So I could come back and I could say, tweet number 3 is terrible. Give me.
You know what I've noticed, and you can tell me if this is true or not true. I've noticed that if you're really nice to it or you're really mean to it, it's responsive. Like every once in a while, you just got to be like, that was awful. And it's like, I'm sorry. It makes me laugh. Maybe I'm just taking my aggression out on a computer. I apologize, people. I just have issues. Tweet number 3 is terrible. Do better.
There you go. Do better. It's okay to say it like that to the AI. Please don't say that to your ministry interns or your staff.
I was going to say the same thing.
Absolutely.
All right, so it gives you a new tweet 3. Now,
I love it.
let's say, Don, like I am not on Instagram a whole lot, but I'm a pastor of a church of 75. I don't have a marketing team. I don't have a social media expert. I don't have any of that, right? And I really want to use Instagram. I like this carousel idea that it gave me. So how would I go about, using the playground than to learn about how to use carousel?
Okay, right. So
Right.
you just asked me a question, but
So I'm going to then type, another follow-up chat.
okay.
And I'm just going to tell it that, I do not know how to use Instagram.
Okay.
How can I create this carousel post?
And I try to spell carousel right.
You can
Okay.
misspell it and it'll get it.
It'll get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That right there.
Yeah. Let's try it.
Let's go for it. Okay.
So now it's giving me some instructions for how do I go in and create that. Okay. And so again, for those of us who are in small churches, this can be incredibly helpful because what I can do with that is like, just imagine like, oh, I've got a social media expert. How would I outsource this to them? Right. Ask those questions to the AI and then you'll kind of get back the answers that you're looking for. So
Doug,
again,
I've noticed sometimes that you'll even ask AI how to write a better prompt. Is
yeah,
that true sometimes?
so I do have, well, I have a couple of like prompt evaluators that I can put my prompts into, and I can go, hey, here's the prompt that I've got. Here's what I'm, trying to get, accomplish with this prompt, and it basically will give some recommendations on how to make it better. Yep.
Got it. Okay. Hey, can we do one more quickly? I mean, we're running out of time and I want to bring up one more thing, but I just think
Go
this is
for it.
pretty important. There are times that I know pastors never feel like they preach too long, Dwayne, but there are others who maybe think that they need to lose 5 minutes out of their message. What would I say as a prompt where it would, like, in order for me to say, before we make a save prompt out of it, what would I say in a prompt to say, how do I cut the 5 minutes out of this message? Kind of thing like that. Like, what would I say?
Yeah, that's a great thought. You could definitely just say it like you just said it.
Okay, I could literally just say it. Okay,
You could literally just say it. Yeah. And if I were to spend some time on it, I may prompt engineer it a little bit differently.
sure.
But you could tell it, for one, everybody preaches at a different pace. And
Right.
I might preach at a little bit of a slower pace than you do, Don.
Mhm.
So it's going to estimate. So if I can tell it, like in this case, we've already uploaded the sermon. If I can tell it how long it's taking me to preach right now. So if I can say, hey, this is taking me 35 minutes to preach right now. My team is telling me I've only got 25 minutes. You know, how do I cut this down to 25 minutes without, taking out anything essential in the sermon?
Oh, that's great. Okay. Okay. Awesome. All right. Let's do this. Let's just open it up for questions. Anybody who's got more questions, anything on prompting, and the floor is yours, and Doug is here to answer. So any questions you've got about that, go ahead. Hi,
Is there
Valerie.
a way, yeah. Is there a way to use prompts to build your own marketing plan or social media plan without it being connected to a sermon? Like, because like I'm our outreach director,
Right.
and so I don't work off of sermons. And I saw that you guys have like an outreach marketing plan in your ministry tools, which is great. But like if I wanted to like share from like my website for our resource center and then create a marketing plan for 6 weeks to encourage people to connect to our resource center, like how do I do that without uploading a sermon
That's a
and
great
prompt it to?
question.
Yeah.
Valerie, we're working on a couple different aspects of that. One, if there is a specific methodology that you're using that you really love, we would love to talk to you about that, and we could maybe potentially build that into a ministry tool and provide it for the whole community so that everybody can get better together. And then two, we are working on creating access to just kind of straight up AI for the platform. And so we're not sure when we're going to roll that out yet. We're still working on how we roll that out. And so, but yeah, that will be something that comes eventually where the context is completely open. We're kind of figuring out like what models do we want to include in that. There's a few different partners that we're working with that are training some models. We're working on that as well. So yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So,
That's helpful.
so the ministry tools area is where you're going to live right now, and we can expand those and kind of make them better. And that is the goal. So ministry tools, it's not even out for everybody right now. If you're in here, you kind of get a look at it because it's in that kind of that beta test where things are working most of the time, right? And then so we know that, but we're also adding more tools and more tools all the time under that moniker of ministry tools. And so the communications side of life is definitely going to be heavily represented inside ministry tools. So keep looking at that and keep on the Facebook page when we upload new ones. Like you saw this past week, if you're on there, Doug posted, hey, I've got 4 new preaching tools up. I want to, take a look, give me your feedback. And then people, I believe, did. And so things like that will consistently happen as well there. But yeah, I mean, and Josh, in a minute, well, goodness, we should just do it now. I'll leave it open for a couple more questions. And then I want to point you all toward what we're going to do in 2 weeks, because it's a a pretty big training days piece that's coming up, and I want to highlight that for y'all. So are there any other questions for Doug on prompting or on the ministry tools that he showed you today before I talk about next week?
Just a quick thought or comment. What about events in the outreach, like Mallory was talking about? I mean, putting something as events in the prompts and things like that, not connected to a sermon, but
Yes.
prompts that would deal with events and things like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
if that
so
would
there
be-
is a ministry tool right now dedicated to events that you've got coming up. So you can go in there. There's an outreach event planner where you can say, I want people to come to this, who's the target audience, and what's the date, and what's the purpose of this event, and it will write out your plans for that right now. But that's just going to consistently grow. More will grow out of that. Okay, Josh, what I want to do with the last 4 minutes, and really it is just really going to be 4 minutes. We try to keep you guys to that hour. Is I want to kind of foreshadow what we're looking at this next training days. You all are our beta test group. A lot of you come every time we do this. Honestly, the first time that Josh and I said, hey, we should do something called training days and see what it would be, I was thinking 10 churches would show up, maybe 15. We had 75 churches sign up today. It was like, there's a lot of people that are really intrigued on how can I use AI to get better and better and better. And what we've had happen on our platform is the platform is officially 1 year old. Okay. It basically last August was when we launched it. It's August now. It's 1 year old. Okay. With that, what we did a year ago and what we do now, it's like walking and flying. Like it's kind of similar, but not really similar at all. It's just grown and grown and grown, and more opportunities and more offerings. And as awesome as that is, it also can be really confusing, because for certain things you're like, hey, we go to the playground for that, or we go to ministry tools for this, or we go to pages for this. And I know it's like having to learn a whole new like workflow. And in ministry, that's really hard, because you have a rhythm to your week and there's new things that they sound like great ideas, but how do I work that in? Well, we're coming out right now that the team is working tirelessly on a version 2 of an overall user interface facelift, so that this becomes much more intuitive to the end user on how to use it every week. And so, Josh, talk a little bit about that, and then let's foreshadow what we're going to do in the next training days, where we're going to basically show you stuff. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we first launched the platform, it was primarily focused on how to take a sermon and generate content from it. Obviously, a lot of our functionality is still aligned to that end. But we've been building out ways to go beyond that, right? How to help you write more effectively, how to help you market the things that are happening within your church more effectively, communications, announcements, all kinds of stuff, as well as how to help you engage people. So like the small group leader guide and the small group guides now have the ability for you to have people actually utilize those for note taking and be able to get back to those notes and that type of thing. So there's a whole bunch of functionality we're adding. One of the things that we've realized about, honestly, we realized this about 6 months ago, was like we're headed to a feature set that is so robust that if we don't change the kind of overarching architecture of the platform in some way, it's going to be really hard to find anything. So if you have made a whole bunch of pages or produced a whole bunch of content, and then you go to that content tab on the left-hand side, it is massive, right? I mean, you can find stuff pretty easy using search and filtration and stuff, but we're going to be rolling out V2 in the fall. We've spent a lot more time working on this than we originally anticipated, and that really hasn't been because we are moving slow. It's actually because we've continued to add more and more stuff to V2. And so version 2 is going to be a platform that allows you and your team, and or if you're single staff person, to bring in volunteers to cover the functionality of pretty much every church would want to have. So everything from sermon writing, preaching, to communications, to discipleship and small groups, all the way drilling down into how your church is engaging kind of across the spectrum from adults to children. And so I know that probably sounds a little nebulous or vague. We actually have the designs in a final state at this point. There's one piece of it that we're still kind of perfecting. But next training days, we're going to walk through those designs with you and show them to you, and just kind of show you how we're advancing the entirety of the platform to hopefully help you and your team and/or your volunteers work together more effectively, save more time so that you can spend more time directly making disciples with your people and in your community. So yeah, I don't know how.
No, that's great. I mean, here's the thing, y'all. Very often when we do training days, the goal is that we help you understand something about the platform that you didn't know before. And by doing that, by proxy, very often you guys will come up with an idea that then helps us develop something else. And that's awesome. Really, the next one, we really kind of want to utilize you as a bit of a focus group to have you help us create a platform that will then help you. We feel really good about where we're going, but you guys are going to kind of be the first people that are going to get a sneak peek at what this is going to start to look like as we release version 2 in the fall. And so just want to kind of give you that feel for what we're going after in the next in two weeks from now, and it'll give you an idea for what we're doing, and then hopefully you can spread the word. I will say lastly, I've talked to you all about spreading the word. You are doing that. So thank you very much. Our subscriptions to the platform are very much up. And I know part of that is because we've asked you all to kind of be ambassadors for this thing and how it's been helpful. And I know you're doing that. So please continue to do that, because we really love that. And we want to help as many churches as possible. Our overarching goal is that pastors can be pastors again. And when you're not stuck behind a computer having to do all of the monotony of everyday ministry, where you can actually go out and meet with your people and work with them through what's going on in their lives, because you have time for that again. And that drives Josh, me, Matt, all the team, Sarah, that's what pushes us, Doug, that we go, man, how do we help pastors be pastors again? So thank you very much on that. I want to say this one thing just because it was put up in the chat, and I don't want you to miss this. Matt, Matt mentioned that there's a major upgrade coming to Clips this week for any of the beta testers. So with you come in here, you now are going to see a major upgrade to Clips that are happening by the end of this week. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's pretty sweet. So we're finishing it up right now. It'll probably be live either by the end of today or tomorrow. So
Yeah, and I've seen it. It's next level, y'all. So that's going to be super, super helpful. So anything else from you, Josh?
No, I was going to say we should definitely let everybody know that there's going to be a major update this week on Clips. So,
Yep.
and then shortly after, there's going to be another major update that is going to blow your minds.
I know, I'm so excited. So, all right, that's it, y'all. Thank you very much. We'll see you in 2 weeks. If you haven't signed up yet, sign up now. The rooms are filling up quick. Thank you. See ya.